I'm a psychologist, and today I want to explain to you why autism in females has gone very much undiagnosed and unrecognized, and why it is ramping up more in recent years and getting more accurate and better. So, I'm going to try and cover a lot in a very short amount of time. For context, I've been working with people with autism for about 5 years. Probably seen over 100 people right now. I mainly do intervention and therapy, not really assessment, but I've worked with plenty of people that have been diagnosed with autism under the intervention category, and you actually get to spend much more time with them anyway than you would in assessment. In assessment, you get 3 or 4 hours. In intervention, you get 10, many more hours. So I feel like I really get to see it, and I really get to see the differences in male and female autism. So let's begin. So one of the reasons why, in order for you to understand why female autism has been so under-recognized and underdiagnosed, is because you need to understand how autism is first diagnosed, but also the diagnostic criteria in and of itself. So, and it's different for children and it is different for adults. So for kids, the gold standard assessment protocol is called the Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule. So what this is the child and the parent and the psychologist, and usually a speech pathologist, will play with the child and try to elicit the autistic traits, such as difficulty with back and forth conversations, difficulty sharing, difficulty understanding and taking turns. The trouble is that if autistic boys typically have a lot of trouble with this. They'll have a lot of trouble with sharing and taking turns and all of that. But on average, girls don't. Girls tend to be a little bit more socially attuned or socially sharing than boys on average. This is not a rule. This is just on average. So of course, if you have a female that has autism, but they, by nature of their gender, typically share a little bit more during these playtime sessions in the assessment room, then that's going to result in the child receiving a lower score on the ADOS from the speech pathologist and the psychologist, potentially leading them to be not diagnosed, but it's actually because of their gender more so than an issue with them not having autism or having autism. I hope that makes sense. You see, a lot of the autism presentation is the person will present with socially restricted interests. You'll have one or two interests and they're very fixated on that. They'll have maybe one friend, if that at all, or maybe they'll have no friends and prefer isolation. And in boys, you typically see that isolation, that social isolation. So it's much easier to pick up on. But with girls, they tend to have at least one or two very, very close friends. And that can mimic neurotypical interactions, leading to a misdiagnosis. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. What the research is pointing towards, and what we're getting better at doing, is recognizing that females actually tend to mask or camouflage more than males. So what this means is, and this is something that I've come across heaps in clinical practice, is women, they get late diagnosed. They have spent their entire life pretending to be normal. They've just felt there's something off and there's something wrong with them, so they self-monitor a lot and they turn their attention to themselves inward to try and monitor themselves, change their behavior, to try and figure out how to interact and act normal within a social context. And it's this exact masking behavior that is part of the reason why a lot of females go undiagnosed and missed, because they're a little bit more socially attuned and a little bit more socially aware than males, so they can mask and hide better, giving off the sense that they are, neurotypical, I suppose you could say, right? Whereas boys, they don't seem to care. It's like the autistic boy will have one interest, doesn't care. He's going to go off and do that thing. Doesn't matter if he spends 6 hours by himself, and that's pretty easy to pick up on and to observe. Whereas with girls, as I said, they display more, I guess you could say, typical social interactions, at least on the outside when you're looking at them, because on the inside, there's a world of struggle going on internally, trying to mask and hide. So yeah, that's honestly one of the biggest reasons that I've come across, and that's actually quite research aligned as well. What I've also noticed is a female with autism that's gone through life without the diagnosis and then ends up getting diagnosed maybe in their 30s and 40s, and then they come to see me for intervention and therapy. They've almost always been diagnosed with something else prior to getting the proper diagnosis. And it seems like anxiety disorders and borderline personality disorder come up a lot, I've found, as the diagnosis, and bipolar as well, actually, as well. And if you really think about it, these conditions, a lot of them are to do with emotional dysregulation, and autism can look that way too, in the sense that the person might get a lot of sensory overload and a lot of overwhelm, leading to a potential breakdown, which can look like a bipolar case, because they've been normal. They've been pretending to be normal. They've been masking and camouflaging their whole life. So of course, if they have a breakdown in their 40s and go to hospital, that can't be autism. That's clearly bipolar, right? And it's this exact issue that's come up quite a lot, of that masking for life that results in a breakdown eventually sometime in their 30s and 40s. So what's going on? How do we fix all of this? Well, the researchers have to fix this. Psychologists have to fix this, and psychiatrists too. I'm not a researcher, I'm just a clinician, so it's not up to me, so to speak, except to get really attuned with the latest research. But the general idea is increasing social awareness to society about these issues, such as what I'm doing with this video. But the researchers have to really come up with more precise diagnostic criteria for males and females, and potentially even separating the two and having different diagnostic categories. Maybe it'd be interesting to see what the American Psychiatric Association comes up with in the DSM-6 for all of this. But that's really the key, is updating the norms and updating and bettering the diagnostic tools. But yeah, that's the end of this video. Hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you feel as if your experience has been validated. Thank you for watching, and subscribe for more.